Sunday, October 7th, 2018. An interview with Michael Boothman, arranger, producer, guitarist, founder of Kaiser Fusion, here to give us a breakdown of his instrument, the instrument that was 55 years old, and Mr. Jonathan Crow, who is the developer of instruments and music technology, music instruments, and go for it.
Yeah, this guitar actually was bought by my father, 1964, around that time. I was just, as a matter of fact, I was still in school. Got the guitar. Actually, before buying the guitar, I had to convince him, and doing so was a task because I ran away from school many days to go and just stay at this guitar at National Music, owned by Claude Martineau on Pembroke Street. At the time, I went to Tranquility Secondary, and the distance there is several blocks, and instead of going in Woodbrook where I live, I found myself at National Music most days after school. So coming and making a plot to speak to my father and influence him to buy the guitar. I took him there to Martineau, and Martineau had to use his sales pitch. He said, well, his son was here most of the days, looking at this particular guitar. And he played it several times. My father at the time tried to dissuade me from purchasing this one because of the expense. He showed me several other guitars. Took me to a couple of the other shops, guitar stores, which at the time was Sagom's and Strong's on Richmond Street. It's one of the early stores that went out of business. And I had a fixation on this guitar. So wherever you took me, I came right back to this guitar. So he took me across to Joey Lewis's home in Gonzales, a close friend of his, because he had a Joey Lewis band, was very popular in that particular time. And he tried to, he asked Joey if he think, if I think you think I should spend this type of money on this guitar for my son. So Joey said, well, let me hear him play. So he brought his guitar, and I played one of his pop songs that was very popular, which was Peanut Vendor. There was an introduction in it that had a nice guitar interlude, which I copied over the days. I can say years because I was very young, over the time. So I played the lick on the guitar, and from the time he heard me play the lick, he was impressed. So he told my father, yeah, this guy is serious. So Oliver Boothman went out and he bought the guitar for me. And ever since, man, it's a dream. It's a dream guitar. I didn't have an amplifier to play the guitar. That was another step. Because when he was convincing me to buy another guitar, he said, maybe I could buy a cheaper guitar and you get an amplifier. And I chose this one without the amplifier. Having to look for a place to plug in the guitar and play it. It took me a couple of days, and when one day I stumbled on some friends, or some people I didn't really know at the time, but they were jamming on a pavement, on the steps in Woodford Street, and they had one of those gutted radio, just the amplifier of the radio and the speaker. And I was so happy to plug in this guitar and make songs with it that they were impressed because they saw the guitar. They said, yeah, we got a member, another player. You have a real guitar this time. So we formed a little band called Moonrakers at the time. And Moonrakers used to play at birthday parties. Most of the time we would just, jam on the step and stuff like that. And then came my band, which actually during a period of the P&M youth group, they had a Balize house, they had a P&M youth group, and they had a table tennis board. And apart from music, I was very interested in table tennis. So over a table tennis match, the guy said, I always work with the guitar. So the guy said, well, you have a guitar, we should put a band, make a band, put a band together, and eventually we put this band together. We had to raise money to buy amplifiers and stuff like that. And doing all sorts of cake sales and susu and all these different things. We went out to Sagums and bought a Dan Electro amplifier. But Rockefellers started very, very humbly and moved on to be one of the top bands in the island. And this guy, the guitar here, was the mainstay, on stage. Everybody saw this strange-looking guitar because it was the guitar that was mostly used with the Fender, Stratocaster, and the Hofner guitars, and the Eggman guitars. Eggman was very, very popular because it was one of the more cheaper guitars out there, and Sagums was the agent for them. So having this Gibson guitar, it put me in a different light in the music field,
So it's almost as if, even though you had your own vision for music, the fact that your father bought you this guitar, the guitar was sort of central, and everything, development in music, your musical career sort of coalesced around this guitar.
That's right. That's right. My first recording, was it... Actually, it was an arm of RCA. And fortunately that I look at how things work, because the first they were like a subsidiary of RCA in Trinidad, run by Leslie Samaru. And we got to do our first recording, which was, we did a recording of the Beatles' Michelle. And we released that song long before it released in Trinidad. As a matter of fact, it was very, very fresh in London, where we got the music through one of our members, Robert Bailey, who is originally from England. And he was in touch with a lot of what's happening in London and stuff like that. So we got magazines like Tidbit magazines and music that came out of England, Beatles, the Kinks, Rolling Stones, Manfred Mann, and you name the rock groups at that period. And Michelle was just released, and from the time I heard it, like I had a knack for, and I think I still have a knack for picking songs out of the brand tab, that I feel that will probably make a hit. I recorded it and it was a hit. And when the true original was released in Trinidad, people, a couple of my friends say, Michael, a group from England called the Beatles playing your music. Not knowing we were doing a cover of it, and I went through another phase too with this guitar, where I was doing a Jimi Hendrix type of thing, because I was very influenced by Jimi Hendrix, the rock world and stuff like that. Where Jimmy used the Strat and I used the Firebird. And one thing about my doing the impersonation and playing the Jimi Hendrix role, Jimmy used the Strat, but I used the Firebird again, and I didn't use to burn my guitars. I wasn't I wasn't that wealthy enough to do that. But after those years, the guitar fell, and this part of the guitar came out, the top part, and I did a little bit of woodwork myself, because that was one of my hobbies too, doing a little art and stuff like that. So I made something that was a little more comfortable for me at the time, because I was small and skinny and stuff like that, and the guitar was a little on the long side. So I try to make it a little more comfortable. And having it there, I met John, but doing my other guitar, I have a Telecaster, and John took a look at it and scared the hell out of me the first time. He took off the neck to see the age of the guitar.
I was on the Telecaster.
Telecaster, and he saw it was 1964 again too. So I had the Telecaster, and John did a real good job with it, and I told him about the Firebird. And he said he would like to have a look at it. And after seeing the guitar, he convinced me that he could bring it back to where it is today. And boy, I still can't get over it, man. You know, it's...
Do you recall what your father paid for it?
Wow, it was about $750. Trinidad dollars. And $750 back in 1964 was like $7,000 or $10,000. It had such a great value, you know. I bought my first motor car for $800 when I was 17, 18 years. So could you imagine this?
Well, a new one now is not cheap.
Yeah.
It's about 4,000 US.
Yeah.
For the new production version just like this.
Which is about 40,000 TT.
It would practically cost that much, yeah.
And by the way, in 1975, when I went to do, I got a contract with RCA Records in New York. I took the guitar because this was my guitar, and I took it with the intention of playing the guitar and also purchasing another guitar. The other guitar I wanted to own was a L3. L3 or 5, L5, the big Gibson that most of the West Montgomery, I'm a big West Montgomery, I'm a fan. And I went into Manny's, and when Manny's told me that guitar was about $2,500 or $3,000 US dollars at the time, which is 1975, I was so disappointed. I went back to the studio, which is RCA, and I brought this guitar back with the intention of trading it for the other guitar and putting a difference, not knowing the value of this piece. And when I opened the case and the people who were shopping saw the case open, they came and they had a look. As a matter of fact, I caused a little sensation in the store because everybody, you know, crowding around the guitar. And one of the guitar players, probably from one of the rock bands, pulled me aside and was offering me something like $5,000 US for it. But at first, I didn't understand what he was saying. It was 500 or 5, you know.
What currency he's talking about, you know.
It was US dollars, man.
And what year was that?
1975.
It blows my mind.
Yeah.
As much as I know about vintage guitars, it blows my mind that you would have gotten that much of an offer back then.
Yeah.
I can't even compare it to other valuable guitars at that time.
I guess
that's about the most I've ever heard.
I guess when he saw the machine heads, he saw the stuff on the guitar, and what he you know, like, the guitar was probably one of the first, if not the first, in the series.
It is.
So I guess he knew that. I didn't know it. You know,
this would have been long out of production.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah, that's probably the reason why.
This style, I mean, I'll speak about it more, but this would have been only really produced between 1963 and 1965. And then the model evolved downward.
All right.
So back then, he knew that this was a particular model from its best years.
Yeah. Its
best quality, you know.
Yeah, but I was much of a connoisseur on guitar. So when at that offer, I thought probably, you know, if he called that figure off his head, there's probably value more than that. So I just canceled that out. I closed the case immediately, and I changed my focus on another guitar. So the other guitar with the 335, the cocoa chocolate bong, the 335 Gibson. I eventually bought the 335 and recorded the Heaven in it. But RCA was a little upset at how the treatment I got in the store. I can remember that clearly, you know, because I went across there with my trailer, I had accent, and so I got a little slighted, like not much of attention. And when they found out that I saw this guitar, they thought that they could probably get better price. So the people at RCA called Manny's himself, you know, and spoke to the Fred Manny's. Anyhow, he spoke with them and told them that one of the artists came across, and he figured that, you know, they figured that I could get a better deal, a better treatment than that, you know, and he said, well, all right, have him come over again. So this time, I brought this guitar. I went across there to buy the other guitar. I got a deal on the other guitar, and the company gave me a case, a travel case for this. So I got like an anvil case to put the new baby back in that guitar case and stuff like that. So
I didn't realize its esteem went up.
Esteem went up.
You know?
Yeah, so Manny's throwing the case. So I got the 335 with the regular gig case, soft gig case, and this with an ample case. And I played with. I won. My band won the 10th Independence anniversary at the Grand Savannah, Grandstand in the Savannah. Beach Park Savannah, in 1972. It was a band competition for bands my size, combos they call it at the time. And we did that. We did one of the new versions. This is where the Kaiser Fusion thing came because we actually were doing experiments with calypso and soca. Not really called soca music now, but we were experimenting with the calypso rhythm then. And we did a recording of a song called Taboo. I again, this was the guitar was used. And while I was on tour in St. Thomas, I met a professor from the University of the Virgin Islands. And he heard me play with the Derek Wall. I was touring with Derek Walcott, Theatre Workshop, Trinidad Theatre Workshop. And after hearing me play and stuff like that, he came and sought me out afterwards. And he told me about my song was sung very much like Santana. At that time, Santana was a new name in my ear. And I guess what he was talking about was that my approach was very modal. And he was very impressed. And he took me across and met some other musicians, and he heard me play. They heard me play and was asking me about theory and stuff. And I wasn't very, very, very much in tune with theory, music theory. You know, I had stopped very young, you know, because my first instrument actually is the piano. And transferring from piano to guitar, I left all the theory part of it. I just used the practical side of the instrument, you know. So when he was talking about modes and stuff like that, he was like speaking French, Spanish to me, you know. But I did it from my ear, you know, from what what I feel and stuff like that. And one thing he did say then was that he was marveled at my ear, and in terms of being able to actually play and having proper pitch and stuff like that. And he said that sometimes when you try to go back into the theory and so on, you could lose some of that creative styles and creative stuff that I have. So he told me that to pursue it along the road rather than to stop and try to go to the institution. You know, he says people like myself, sometimes with a natural ability, you just need to develop the other side on your own terms and own time, you know. So this guitar here, Mr. Crow did a really beautiful job of it. He took the guitar and seen it through the stages. He might be able to tell you more of what he did to bring this back into. But seeing this guitar, it looked just like it came out of the store, you know, just fresh again.
So Jonathan, tell us what you had to do to restore this.
Well, it looked quite different when I started, and I kept some photos that I would submit to show you what I started with, having gotten it from him, and what I broke it down to, because I pretty much took the guitar apart piece by piece and built it back together as if I were building a brand new guitar. I've been building guitars since about 20, 21 years old, and was repairing guitars a few years before that. By the time I met Mr. Boothman, I had been well into building guitars and amplifiers and so on. And I was in that I was very influenced by this Gibson company, which in the time frame of the mid-50s to the mid-60s created guitars that have become industry standards and are still the dominant designs today. So just from building guitars, I had an influence and a knowledge of the guitars that this fell into. Right, I already knew all about this from my own building from scratch education. So when I met Mr. Boothman, I had serviced several other guitars, same kind of time frame, and I heard about this Firebird, I heard about it. I really had to beg you a bit to bring it for me. I don't know if you felt embarrassed because it had been damaged and somewhat refurbished. So when I got this, it didn't look anything like this. As he mentioned before, this part had been missing, and also he had scraped off the blue paint, and this was natural brown raw color, natural mahogany color, because this is all made of mahogany. So when I checked it out, I realized that the structural things needed to be done, and the paint job needed to be done over. The parts, all the metal parts and the electronic parts, are the original guitar parts. They weren't replaced over the years, all original. So I figured if I did the structural work and the paint work, keeping all the original electronics and parts, you could really get the guitar just back like it was new, right? Even though there is some little wear and tear on the metal bits and so on. So, roughly speaking, this guitar is constructed in a way where a continuous piece of wood runs along the whole length, which is unusual with guitars. It's usually a wooden joint here. So this goes all the way through, and it's called neck through construction. So basically, what had happened was that where the body pieces here join the neck piece in the middle, the old-time glue had gotten powdery because of our climate and so on, and these pieces pretty much fell apart when I worked on them. So I had this middle piece, and this was missing. So this new piece here that you see with these curves and contours is a piece that I built myself from mahogany that I had, and attached it to the body using the original outline that would have been there. So this is a new piece, but all of this is the original wood re-glued, taken off and re-glued, right? And I had some other work to do. Just from natural wear and tear over the years, all of the decades of playing, the frets were pretty much worn down, and this plastic white edging here was worn away as well. So I went ahead and replaced those pieces, and after that, it was a matter of doing the color. Now the color was a bit of a runaround because it turns out that the Gibson company debuted this guitar with this as one of the color options, and this was in 1963. When I looked at the guitar, I realized it was the first year that this model was ever produced, 1963. And back then, Gibson used a color from a 1960 Cadillac. The only car, the only model, the only year that this blue ever existed on. So I had to look up on the internet to get the right paint color codes. I got local paint repair suppliers to mix this accurate color. They couldn't believe this funny blue. I mean, it doesn't show up on the charts. You know, we don't know anything about it. When I gave them these codes, they were able to find out, okay, there's only one car ever had this color. So I got it mixed up and did the spray job on it. And then there's a clear coat that goes over that. But I even had to convince you to go with the blue because color, yeah. At the time he was compelled to keep the mahogany with the repairs that I had done. But I convinced him, you know, I said, look, if it was originally blue, I like to do restorations back like it left the factory. I don't like to tell a story, well, this is a 1963 Gibson, but we did this and we did that and we did this. I just wanted to represent how it was when it was really
authentic.
Yeah, just back to scratch, right? So having done that, the paint job was successful. I put on all the original parts, polishing them as best as I could. Wiring, all the wiring is original and so on. And presented it to him in time for another anniversary, Independence anniversary concert. So your debut with this recently was at the National Academy for Performing Arts with this guitar. Yeah.
Yes, it was really nice having to play it again. You know, and the guitar responded. As a matter of fact, boy, you know, it's been so long that I've, you know, haven't played the guitar, that particular guitar, and I grew accustomed to the other guitars because I have at least about 13, 14 guitars, and it's difficult sometimes to decide which one to use. And all of them are my favorites, actually. You know, as a matter of fact, I bought a Telecaster from John, who had convinced me that you know this guitar song is really good and he played well.
This one,
yeah. So lately I play a lot of this Strat because the fact that it's a roadworthy guitar. You know, take licks. You know, you could go out to it and you don't have to worry about it. Even if it fall, it could, you know, you don't worry like if this fall. I mean, I would cringe.
These are made of more fragile woods.
Yeah. But this built to take licks because I mean, them guys rock and rollers used to beat people with it and
might still be in tune.
Yeah. Yeah, you know. Yeah, so I have a few vintage guitars. I have a Precision, as well, a Precision bass, Fender bass, which is from the same period. Because that was the time I started playing in bands and stuff around Rockefellers. You know, we went out and bought the Fender Precision bass. I got the Telecaster as well as 1964. So I have these vintage guitars, and I intend to have them as like heirloom, you know, pass on to the next generation and next generation, rather than to have them sold.
But you made that error once before. So.
Yeah. I don't do that more than once.
Almost.
Yeah.
Well, I have a good collection of vintage instruments myself. Not being a generation younger than Mr. Boothman, I wasn't there when these things were new. But from the love of guitars and building guitars and learning about them, again, all the cool stuff happened in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
So from doing repairs and so on, I've picked up a few carcasses of old instruments that I've rebuilt like new, just like this. So I have some fantastic instruments that are restored like this. You know, I didn't have them from new. And also some that are in original condition. And I regularly rebuild amplifiers. So I have quite a collection home of 60s and 70s amplifiers. He would have been able to buy brand new in a store back in the day. But for me, it's something that I only heard about when I first got into guitar. And I had to go digging and getting junk from people and then learning how to repair them, you know.
Very nice one, you know.
Gentlemen, thank you from one generation to the next. And here is the Gibson Firebird.